those people are all coming in here. They have to sign in.
Joris, can I ask you something?
Yes.
Can I attend the masterclass too? Although I'm not
You have to ask someone else. I'm not in charge.
Okay.
You can ask me about chord changes or not about that stuff.
Because also I didn't receive the link to the workshop.
I think you have to ask the front desk guys.
Yeah, that's true.
Ja, denk je dat zo?
Als hij die microfoon gebruikt, dan is het wel. Waar staat die camera ergens? Die witte? Ja. Oké. So the online people are in this camera on the right.
So I'll be looking in the way.
Yeah.
Not a must.
Well, there's a blue light. But if you have the pen, I'll make it big.
The happy few. Yeah, the ones that got X. The ones that got X come in. Is this group A?
Yes.
Good. You're group A?
Yeah.
Good. So we have got group A, group B and group C. Group A is live today. Group B will be live next week and group C will be live the week after. That's how I understood the system. And so meaning if you're not in group A, who's allowed here, then you have to be outside and online checking it out, because there's should be a link on YouTube posted, maybe even on Facebook, in order to watch it. Okay, welcome back. Welcome the new faces. Yes, nice to have you here. It's going to be a bit messy the first couple of days, maybe 2 weeks, and then
Okay.
in the meantime we will find out what's going on and what's going wrong and fix stuff and so on. One little thing that was already a miscommunication this morning: we have an ensembles, the USA ensembles and the stage experience. There are two different groups. It is not that the one morning group is the same as the stage experience group. There's different groups. So the schedule is on the board, also from the stage experience. You can check out in which group you are there. Johan, I switched you to the Monday or Tuesday group because you were on Friday. Yeah. If there are any questions, always drop by Annette or my place. Usually schedule questions is about her, content questions about with me. And without further ado, and we're really happy to have them back on stage. one first-time visitor and 2 old-timers. Old guys.
Where's my teeth?
Steve and Joris, our very own teachers. And all the way from Vienna, our New York teacher of this week, Danny Grisset. Welcome.
We're getting to know each other here. This is my first time playing with Steve, to my great pleasure. And and Joris and I, we have played together. I'm trying to think if that was the first time then. No, it wasn't the first time. We played longer ago than that. But we recently were on a tour together with a great vocalist by the name of Vanessa Rubin. And so it's nice to be back on stage and make some music with you. That was a song by the great Freddie Hubbard, in case you don't know. That's called Up Jumped Spring. And I think, yeah, exactly, yeah. Any of these names that I might mention that sound new to you, you know, get your Google list. I don't know if you guys keep a Google list, but I keep a Google list on my phone. And like sometimes when I'm on the road and people talk and we talk about different things, I hear a name or I hear a recording or whatever, I just go, I write it down. And then, you know, I make my way through there and find new information. But anyway, I'm from Los Angeles originally, Los Angeles, California. I went through, you know, music school, you know, at the local level, and then I went on to do the Monk Institute. And then, yeah, shortly after that, I moved to New York. It took me a while to get there. I was pretty old when I got there. I was already 27 or 28 even. But you know, everybody has a different path. You know, I didn't go the traditional or the typical route. You know, through knowing that I necessarily wanted to play jazz or go to a school and have like a quote unquote formal jazz education in universities. But you know, I got there eventually. And if anything, I hope that you guys will take away from today or in general their life lessons is that, you know, everybody has their own path. You know, there's like my mom used to say, her dad just says, there's more than one way to skin a cat. That's a very terrible metaphor, but anyway, that was the saying in the South. Yeah, you know, New York, I never felt like I was ready to move there, you know, because like I said, I wasn't really a jazz pianist. I was a classical pianist at first, and even though I enjoyed the music, I never really had, you know, formal lessons or formal, you know, kind of introduction to it, where I said, yeah, I want to play that, and had some resources, you know, to learn it. But yeah, I got there eventually, and New York was and still is probably the greatest school for me, because I learned so much, because so much can be learned from just being around other musicians, other students, other, you know, pillars of the jazz community, greats, whatever you want to call them, masters, and being able to be inspired nightly by music that's happening all over the place, and you can see the who's who of this music. And I remember when I got to New York, one of the first people I called was Billy Hart, because I kind of came up with his son, who he's also a drummer. You guys know who Billy Hart is, by the way? I'm going to stop all the time. Okay, I see everybody's nodding. In case you guys don't know, Billy Hart is he's been here, perfect.
He's part of the
Perfect. A little closer, okay. Gotcha. Yeah, perfect. So anyway, he has a son named Lorca, who's also a drummer, and he and I played a lot, and we had a trio together in LA, and so I met his dad through him. He said, you know, call me when you get to New York. And so I called him, and he said, all right, well, the first thing you gotta do, you gotta get you a hot house. He was giving me like the lay of the land. Okay, get you a hot house, you know, Joris knows what I'm talking about. It's kind of a magazine or a publication that has, you know, all the clubs and who's playing and articles and CD reviews and whatnot. He said, you gotta get your hot house. And then, you know, you got to find the sessions, you know, and you got to make contact with people, and, you know, and get out and let people hear you, but also just be seen, and you just be, you know, be out on the scene. And that's kind of part of the hustle. It's part of the hang, you know, just to be seen and be heard, and let people know who you are. And anyway, I realized once I got the hot house that it wasn't about deciding what to go see, but it was actually deciding what to miss, actually, because it was just so much, you know, for the taking, that you could go see so many people you could go see night and night, not just, you know, one style, like different styles, you know, and And so I just tried to take it all in for the 12, 13 years that I lived there. And I had some fortunate connections and people that I met, and gigs that I was on, and you know, if there's anything questions I can answer about, you know, the scene in New York, I'm happy to. I moved to Vienna about 5 or 6 years ago, and it's largely kind of like a life decision, family, that sort of a thing. And since then, I've been kind of bi-continental, going back and forth. You know, doing most of my work is still generated through New York, but I'm kind of enjoying the best of both. You know, kind of upgraded life quality for what I can afford and provide, you know, for family, and also just playing with great musicians and meeting great musicians in Europe, which there are a plethora of. So that's a little bit about me. I think we'll play one more, and then you know, maybe open up for some questions. I'll talk a little bit about my music, and maybe even play a song of mine. So this next song is a song, I just brought it in. They're gonna read it. It's a pretty simple song, but it's by one of my biggest influences on the piano anyway. His name is Mulgrew Miller. He's, if you guys don't know that name, write it down. He's one of the greatest pianists in my estimation that has ever lived, but also of his generation. He definitely was, you know, the leading, let's say, pianist. He's on tons of recordings in terms of his own voice, which is one of the hardest things to do, is find your own voice in this music. He influenced a lot of piano players, his generation, the younger generation, and we lost him, I think in 2013 was that. And he's a great composer too. Some of my favorite things about his compositions, if I may just share that with you, is that a lot of them are in you know, standard forms like AABA, like this one, kind of AABA. But he writes the best bridges. Usually on songs, the bridge is kind of forgettable, you know, because it only happens once, you know, and you get to hear the A sections, you know, 2 or 3 times, maybe in some variations. But his bridges are just, yeah, in my opinion, some of the best things. So, say it again. Yeah, let's play BBAB. Yeah, let's do that. This is called When I Get There, and it's a slow, let's say, blues. It's not the traditional blues form, but it has a lot of elements of the blues in there, which is definitely an important element of this music we call jazz. So, When I Get There. before I go any further, does anyone have any questions for me? Questions, curiosities? Sure.
Said this tune makes you sound impressed, or that you really like, especially the bridge part?
Yes, not just this tune, but all of his tunes. Like the bridges are somehow very memorable for me, and also very unique. Not just the idea. Like a lot of times on bridges, it's a contrast, to maybe the A section. Maybe something a little different. If the A sections are somehow very melodic, maybe the bridges will be something that counter that. Maybe the melody will slow down somehow or develop what happened before. But his ideas on the bridges, for me, sometimes they're out of this world. Like you think like, okay, the song was like, it was here, this level of interest, and then the bridge goes, and it's even some examples they're even more angular, or the harmony gets more dense, or it's in a way where it seems like it's in two tonalities somehow. I don't know if you noticed how many keys the bridge went through. It really was moving a lot, right, through a lot of different keys, and it has a lot of notes that are let's see, in his voicings anyway, that don't go with the chord, in a theoretical sense, so that for me creates a lot of interest in ways where usually the bridge you not that you forget it, but if you have a tune, you would say, oh yeah, I know the A section. How's that bridge go again? People always say that. How does the bridge go on that song? Because it's oftentimes the thing that is, I don't want to say forgettable, but people often forget them, and I never forget his bridges. They're just, spectacular. I don't know how else to say that. So thank you for your question. Anybody else have any other questions?
Can you repeat the name, please? Again?
Mulgrew.
Is it?
Mulgrew, M-U-L-G. The name of the song or the pianist who wrote it?
The pianist.
Yeah, Mulgrew, M-U-L-G-R-E-W. Miller, M-I-L-L-E-R.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you can find him in a lot of different contexts. He played with the Duke Ellington Big Band when Mercer was leading it, I guess in the 70s. Woody Shaw, Freddie Hubbard, Tony Williams. There's some cool video that you can see on Google, YouTube of Tony Williams' band in the, I want to say late 80s, playing live in New York is called, and they play, Tony Williams' book, and Wallace Roney and Bill Pierce and a few different bass players. I think at that time it was Ira Coleman maybe. Yeah, but Bob Hurst did that gig before, and I think Charnette Moffett for a time too, didn't he?
Yeah.
I think so. So yeah, Mulgrew Miller. Any more questions?
Do you have the chart for this song? Because I tried to find that
Yeah, it's just something I transcribed. Yeah, so
I just sent it.
I'm happy to share it with you. You can have that one if yours doesn't want to keep. Yeah,
We
but
can
I have
make
copies in case you wanna check them out. But some of his music is, I think one or two of his songs are in the real books. If you have them, there's one called From Day to Day that's in the real book.
You might want to play it Friday, but I memorized it now.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Yeah, it's in the book.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll play one of mine. Because I also compose. I have maybe 6 or 7 albums as a leader, and I love to play my tunes. I was talking to the class earlier today about composing and arranging a bit, and my approach is very much trying to see music as a lot of little individual elements, made of different elements that we study in music, harmony, rhythm, form, texture, melody, all these different things. And I like to take those little small elements and ideas and play with them, as much as I can, and try to put them in different combinations. And this is something that's always going through my head as a composer, but also as an improviser, trying to see the small things, And for me, maybe you guys are all geniuses, but I can only work with small things. I can't really work with a lot of big things all at once. So a lot of what I do is little tiny things, and they are put together, a lot of small things together, or just individual with spacing and whatnot. And that's my general approach with composing too, and it's something that I enjoy to do. So I'm going to play a song that I wrote for let's see, I guess I'll play the one I wrote for my son. This is called Mr. Wiggleworm, and he was, I don't know, 1 or 2 when I wrote it, and he was very much a wiggle worm, someone who, like most kids, but he was special. He could not be still for a second, and he's a ball of energy. And so this song I wrote with kind of like shifting time. It's in 3/4 time kind of, but it kind of shifts between big 3 and small 3, if you know what I mean by that. But like a big feel of and this kind of sound. Yeah, this is called Mr. Wiggleworm. Thanks, Steve. See, I told you I'm not a genius. Yeah, so that's Mr. Wiggleworm. Any questions about that song or about composing or general questions otherwise?
What is the first thing when you're composing? Like having a rhythmical idea or a melody or harmony or?
Want to repeat the question for
Yes, the question was for those watching via the internet. What is the first thing when I'm composing? When I start to compose, and I say again like an element. It's not very specific like a melody or something like that. It's an idea from some element. That element could be a melody. It could be an interval. It could be a rhythm. It could be a bass line. It could be a chord progression.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of, this song started from a chord progression. I literally sat down at a sound check on some gig, and I sat down at a great piano. And sometimes, for those people who play an instrument, where sometimes you have to play other people's instrument, like that's not really so much by saxophones and trumpets, but basses, drums, pianos, sometimes guitars, from night to night, it really affects how you hear. And when I sat down at this piano and I laid down this chord, I don't want to do any feedback. I laid down that first chord. It was the most beautiful thing. I was like, wow, beautiful sound. I laid down this chord, and I forget the people at the internet. I laid down that chord, and it was a beautiful sound, and I started moving it around on the piano. I was just playing with that sound, yeah? And then, and through that, I found these kind of places where it sounded like a cadence. It sounded like it was resolving to something, and that was what you heard. So those sounded like cadences to me. So that's how that started. It started with a chord progression, And then I invented some little melody, some small little melody that went with it. And since it was kind of a sequence, I kind of carried that, And then, like I was saying, for those, I guess there weren't so many people together at the workshop earlier today, but then I made further decisions, but always based on just thinking about some element, some little small thing. Okay, trying to find contrast. Am I going up now? Okay, now I'm going to go down. Am I loud now? I'm going to go soft. Is the interval this now? Okay, now it's going to be the other way, or whatever. Or using some of the melodic development tools or techniques, to carry the melody further. That melody is largely sequential, but it does introduce some other ideas as it goes on. I don't know if this is the place to break that down, but yeah, that's what's going through my mind when I sit down and start. Someone else had a question I saw.
You answered it.
Okay, good. Yeah, so trying to think if there's anything else I can say about that. Also, for me, I like songs that have a beginning and an ending, like that the beginning is composed. It's like a part of the song, and also just writers who write like that. To me, Cedar Walton is an influence. I like his music because a lot of his songs are the way that they go. They have all of the elements. They've got the arrangement is kind of built into the melody. And oftentimes they have endings and things like this. I like that. There are a lot of composers like that, but Cedar Walton is one of the people that I like to play his tunes for that reason. So then, after that, I started figuring out, well, what is an intro like? Okay, what can I do for an intro? What can I do for a coda that goes on the end where it's new material that takes us to an ending? And for me, that kind of completes the picture. It doesn't always come at the end, meaning I don't always come up with the idea at the end. Sometimes, you know, I think of it in the middle of a tune. Wow, this would be a great way to end or extend this in the ending, and I put it in the back of my mind and say, okay, I'll get to that when it's time to compose the ending. But I always am just thinking of these little elements, pieces, things. What can I do? How can I change it? Where can I put it? And that goes for all those things. Also form, you know. Yeah, but especially harmony. I showed some examples earlier today where in this arrangement of Woody and You, the bridge I arranged in 5, you know, and it was the only thing in 5 in the whole arrangement. So then I ended up writing an intro that was 5 bars, and for me it's like a little picture, and it's like a jigsaw puzzle. I'm making little things that tie in. That's something that 5 bars seems maybe completely random, unrelated, but then it's actually related to the bridge, which is also 5. So I like to compose in that way where, you know, yeah, I'm playing around. It's like it's fun, but it's also in the effort to create something beautiful and something, you know, that maybe is can connect, you know, on some level.
And can you say that you think about it more intuitively, or do you think about it in theory? What will work considering
These things have become intuitive. So it's not always very cerebral what I'm doing. Like sometimes it's kind of like it just feels like the right thing, right? It feels like that'll work. But in general, whenever I get into a corner where I don't know what to do next, then I start drawing from these things, and I look at whatever the music material that's there, and I say, what is there? Okay, that's that little idea. Okay, what can I do with that? You know, maybe I can take that and make something and go on, you know. I'm speaking in very, very general term, but that's kind of how it's very general. I don't have a premeditated, you know, formula for how I compose, except for that I'm looking at small ideas, and then I try to put them in a certain context, or sometimes displace them rhythmically. I can, you know, there's tons. I don't know if you guys have in your theory classes about, you know, developing melody, but there's tons of terms and what you can do from, you know, sequence and repetition and octave displacement. Like there are all these different things that you can do. Harmonic augmentation. You know, all these terms. You know, these technical terms, but they all have meanings, and they all correspond to ways to manipulate these elements of melody and then sometimes harmony. The melody ends up being right. So that sequence. Oh, sorry. At the very end, there's just some triad at the end. It's kind of the idea is extended. Yeah, and then to go further, I ended up turning that new idea into the ending of the phrase. So I repeat that part again. I'll say, right, there's that try it again. Right? That's again, it's just triads, you know, I'm playing. So me extending that little melody, I got a new idea, and then I took that and tried it in different ways, major and minor and that sort of thing. It's really kind of that basic with me and my approach. It's not to say basic that it's easy, but to me, it gives me, I'm never out of ideas, because I can just, you know, the music's there, I can take it and say, okay, I know I have this, I can look at it like 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 this, and I can, you know, again, shape and form things.
Question. So, how do you prepare when you assignment play some others band?
Mm-hmm.
The first question.
Okay.
Second, what kind of music are you listening to right now?
Okay. First question, it was as a sideman, what am I doing in preparing for a gig? I've done a lot of sideman playing, and I guess the first thing I would say is that I've always tried to be able to be prepared to play different styles, you know, not necessarily one concept, because every band leader has their own kind of idea for how they want their band to sound. So listening to a lot of different musics, you know, for reference, and how, you know, how to play in a rhythm section in one context or another, and whatever kind of style of music that you're playing. So that's the first thing. It's just to be open. And then the other thing is, I mean, preparation. You know, preparation. Being prepared. If I know that I'm going to be playing with this person, you know, I check out their records. You know, I maybe even check out some tunes, some older tunes of theirs. I've been playing with Tom Harrell. I don't know if you guys know who Tom Harrell is. He's a trumpeter for over 12 years, and he's someone that he composes a lot. I mean, he has so much music. It's you know, I've been to his place, and there are, you know, volumes and volumes of stuff that he's composed. So you never really get a chance to stay on one thing for very long. So it actually prepared me for always learning new music and being open for a different challenge. So definitely preparation. When you are on a gig as a sideman, you get music to take home. Man, do your homework, you know, because the thing is, when you're playing new music, band leaders, they basically hire you, especially rhythm section players, they basically hire you to make the music feel good, basically. You're not necessarily the main soloist, but in order to make the music feel good, you got to get off the page. You know, you can't be so into the music. So definitely, I recommend, you know, learning the music from memory if you can, but definitely playing it enough times where you feel comfortable when the bass player does something different than what you expect, and it's not going to throw you off, you know, from the music, you know. So just definitely being prepared. What am I listening to these days? Well, actually, in the let's call it the Corona times, I haven't been listening to much music at all. Actually, I've been practicing a lot of classical music, and trying to just deal with some different things at the piano. But I'm hoping to get back to listening soon. I haven't been listening to much music, honestly.
Thank you.
May I ask what you're practicing? Like, what kind of classical music?
A couple of Chopin etudes. I practiced Mozart sonata. I'm a big fan of Chopin, so I practiced a couple of the waltzes. You know, the one in A minor. What is what?
What about the Bach, Johann Sebastian Bach's music?
No.
You don't practice Bach?
No, I haven't practiced Bach in years.
Okay.
One of the reasons why I love Chopin is because I find a lot of things applicable for what I'm doing at the piano, and how he voice leads and how his chord changes are. It's very, and a lot of the short forms that he has are very much. Yeah, they're kind of like tunes, you know, and I love that.
Sure.
Not so much the extended pieces, but yeah. Who else am I practicing? Yeah. Anyway,
Let's play a Chopin.
I recorded a Chopin etude on one of my. Well, I'm not prepared to play it today, but I recorded a Chopin etude about 3 or 4 albums ago that I basically transcribed the changes. I kind of extracted the changes, and played the etude as written for kind of like, let's call it the A sections, the part that was kind of repeating, and then the bridge goes into where I kind of extracted the changes, and we play it as a rhythm section, and I improvise, you know, over the whole thing. It's fun, and that's particularly fun about Chopin's music. But yeah, it's on an album of mine called Stride.
I also have a couple of questions.
Sure.
The first one is, when you compose, you are thinking usually on the instrumentation, or music comes first and then you say, okay, this could fit on this group or with this?
Yeah, in general, instrumentation is not one of the elements that I am thinking about when I'm composing. When I'm arranging, definitely. That we got into that discussion earlier today as well as one of the elements, knowing who what instrumentation I'm arranging for, and in some cases who. But not when I'm composing. And generally, when I'm composing, I'm just kind of thinking about, music. Maybe I'm thinking about myself. What I can play, and or a general concept, but not necessarily instrumentation when I'm composing.
Okay. The other question is, when you are developing all these elements
Mm-hmm.
and putting them together somehow,
Mm-hmm.
when do you feel, how you recognize that is the moment to stop? I mean, that is enough, or that to not break the coherence of the music, or what do you?
Yeah. For me, it's been largely trial and error. I think that is what it's like for a lot of people when they compose, trial and error. But the thing is that you learn a lot from listening to great composers and listening to great music, and really looking at their examples of how they develop. Generally, after 2 or 3 repetitions of something without any sort of variety or variation, whether it's where it is in the scale or on a different pitch or whatever, it generally runs its course. And so that's kind of a general rule for me, but it's really hard to say. But you learn a lot from listening to great composers, at least in the jazz context. Your Duke Ellingtons, your Wayne Shorters, your Cedar Waltons, also Horace Silver. You learn a lot from listening and learning those things on your instrument and playing those melodies. You get a feeling for what a great melody is, and that's just the jazz composers. Also, some of the music from these, Tin Pan Alley, the Broadway tunes, the radio tunes that were on, a lot of the standards that we play in the jazz, that are in the jazz lexicon. They're great melodies. They're just beautiful, great melodies, well written melodies. So I think the more music you play, the more music you learn, you get a feeling. You get a feeling for that, and then so for me, it's kind of a combination of my collective experience of playing melodies, of playing tunes, and also the awareness of these possibilities of ways to manipulate, and even some of those things are evident in some of the tunes that I like to play. I always like to give an example of a Wayne Shorter idea that I don't know too many examples of this happening before, but basically, if you know the album Adam's Apple, Wayne Shorter, there's a song on there called El Gaucho. So there's also an album called Etc. Same artist, Wayne Shorter, and he has a song on there called Penelope, and it's essentially the same idea, but it's 2 completely different songs, and maybe I could demonstrate that a little bit. But the idea is this. Right, that's the thing. The rhythm is like. Right, that's the how El Gaucho goes. It's a kind of a, I don't know, how would you say, kind of a medium up tempo, kind of a straight song. The other song he wrote is called Penelope, and the melody is. I'm sorry, it's in 3/4 this time. 1, 2, 3. Right? It's essentially the same idea, you know, but it spawned 2 different tunes, you know, very different tunes, in fact. And that's a great example of, you know, one element that can be taken in any direction. It's really limitless what you can do. If you don't know those songs or that person, please, you know, put it on your Google list and check out those tunes. It's pretty amazing. You know those two tunes, Joris? Yeah, it's really. Hmm? No, we don't have to. I'm just giving an example of, like, you know, you were saying, you know. Yeah.
So, could I just add something to that?
Sure.
Sometimes, I don't know if you experience this,
Mm-hmm.
I have material for a song that ends up feeling like too much material for that song, but you like it all. So it becomes 2 songs. Maybe that's what happened to Wayne Shorter. You know, and then you think, oh, maybe this is going to be like a suite of 3 movements or 2 movements or something like that. But my sense, like Danny's saying, of how I know that's too much material, I could only say it probably comes from listening to lots of music and just kind of feeling it.
Can
Sure.
you play a standard in the trio?
Sure.
Maybe after
Cedar
you
Waltz?
listen
Yeah. Cedars. Is that what you mean? Like a jazz standards cool? Like we play one of Cedar's tunes? Is that right?
to- Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. We have what's the name of that song? Hindsight?
Firm roots.
Firm Roots we could do. Yeah, I'm sorry. You brought this over to me and I'm just trying to find another place to put it. See if I remember. See if I remember Firm Roots. Firm Roots?
Yeah, I can see it. I have the same thing with the hindsight.
I remember that.
cedar on that in head. I haven't played that in wow, probably over 10 years, but it came back to me. That's a great song. You know, it's one of those sequential melodies, right? Right, it's that one melody, and then the second idea at the end. You know, it's a pretty sequential tune, kind of AAB form. Two ideas, but you know, I don't know what Cedar was thinking, but you know, it's definitely, you can kind of break it down in its elements and kind of see how he formed that tune. But a great composer. He has a lot of other music. If you haven't checked out Cedar's music, please do.
What's
It's
the
a lot
name
of great.
name of this tune?
That one is called Firm Roots. But he's got a lot of other ones that are actually in a lot of the real books. You know, Hindsight is another one. What's the other one? Bolivia. That's the one everyone knows. I'm thinking Holy Land. Yeah, the one I'm thinking of is boom boom doo 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 boom 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 boo doo doo doo. I think of the name in a minute. But da 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 da. I can't think of the name right now. Ugetsu is another one.
Oh, I like that.
That's a great one. Yeah, puppy. Da-da. You know, Vincent Herring told me a story about Ugetsu playing with Cedar. If you guys don't know who Vincent Herring is, that was one of his first gigs when he kind of got a break in New York, let's say. And he went and learned all of Cedar didn't have music. Cedar was like, all right, we'll see you at the gig on such and such date, and see you there, you know. It wasn't like, okay, here's my book, here are the charts, you know, whatever. He's like, hey man, can you make a gig, right? Take your butt home and learn his book, right? That's old school. So he learned, you know, all of his music from his records, and he learned Ugetsu like that. Right? And he played that at the gig, and Cedar, you know, gave him a dressing down, said, man, that's the wrong melody. And he said, well, you know, that's what's on the record. He said, yeah, man, Freddie didn't know what he was doing. He's like, I didn't write that, you know, I wrote something else. He has a different melody, but Freddie, you know, it's like those
What
typical.
is his melody?
His melody, as Vincent told me, was something like, and not, right? He said, no, that's wrong, you know. And it's like, you know, you have so much power when you play the melody, you know. Like Miles is a typical example, right? So many tunes we learned from Miles's version that are just not, you know, the melody, right? But they're great, right? He's a great.
Isn't there like a Benny Golson, like and the Bridge of Stablemates?
Yeah.
In the real book they have ba ba, and he hates. It's like no, it's
Yeah.
just one note.
Like that.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, yeah, Ugetsu, that's called. It also has another name. Fantasy in D, exactly. That's from the Art Blakey songbook, so you can see that on. I think the name of the album is called Ugetsu. Yeah.
That major 7 is beautiful.
The
major 7 stuff. Is
beautiful.
Yeah.
There was recently released another track from that session.
Mm-hmm.
Of them playing a Cedar Walton arrangement of Conception. It's like now you can get the new album has that on it. It's really slick. If you guys know that song Conception, it's a typical Cedar Walton arrangement, you know, with like lots of, you know, kind of like he arranged in a very orchestral way, you know, with lots of, it's typical pianist actually.
Unique guy.
Yeah. Other questions? Sure.
When you compose, actually, how do you write the bass parts and the drum parts? I mean, do you write like every note, or how do you?
Yeah, I mean, I could show you some chart. Do you think that would be worthwhile? Is this working? I was plugged in earlier. Is it on still?
We have 10 minutes.
We have 10 minutes. Well, in general, It depends on how specific the composition. Some compositions I have, there are not so many, let's say, considerations for specific notes for the bass, and maybe they just need changes. But if they need specific material, I definitely write it out. Even sometimes my voicings are specific, you know, for me, like I want to hear this sound, and I write them out. That's something that I definitely picked up from Tom Harrell, because I played a lot of his music, and he's also someone that writes, when necessary, will even write a drum chart. I've seen his drum charts, not like, okay, bass and drum, no, like a drum chart with the, you know, with the rhythmic figures, if he wants a specific thing on a cymbal or drums or whatnot. So yeah, I write, when it's necessary, I write specific things, even down to the dynamics.
Oh, yeah. I have two questions.
Okay.
About the last tune.
Mm-hmm.
I never heard of this one before. And as you are pianist,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say, what would you give me a point if they are 1 to 10 for, what should I call it? The easy and hard.
Mm-hmm.
How much point
That song, how hard is it? Well, that's all relative, right? I would say that it's easy, at least from a technical standpoint, because it's not very notey. Bo dee dee is a you know, kind of major scale. B dee 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 doo dee, right? The harmony, the whole A sections are just 2-5-1s, right? That's like one of the basic things that we try to get together right at the beginning of jazz, right? We say, okay, how do I play a 2-5-1? It's 2-5-1 in the key of E flat, 2-5-1 in the key of C. Yes, white keys. 2-5-1 in the key of B flat, and yeah, and then on the bridge it has these ascending minor chords: F minor, G minor, A minor, and B flat minor, and then 2 dominant chords: A flat dominant or sus, and then F.
Do you feel the same way when you make the tune?
Yes, but only because by the time I came to that tune, I was comfortable with playing 2-5-1s and dominant chords, basically, which you need to know to play that tune. You need to know how to play. Actually, you need to know how to play dominant chords and major chords, right? 2 is whatever, right? 2, if you have conversations with Barry Harris, he'll tell you there's no such thing as 2. Okay, so 5-5-1, yeah. The thing that's challenging about that tune, maybe the tempo. You know, people like to play it fast. You know, that was kind of like medium fast.
I gotta say, for me, today is the first time I really played with a band in 6 months. And also no practicing, so then I can see, because of the tempo. But if you're playing fast all the time, then it's no problem.
Yeah.
Oh,
Exactly.
Actually, that was kind of my second question. My
Mhm.
second question was actually for all of you. When was the last time all of you played this tune?
March 12th.
Oh, he said this tune. He said this tune.
Oh,
Yeah.
on your record.
I mean, yeah. It's
In
been
the
over 10 years for sure.
1998, maybe?
Yeah.
And then it was in 3/4.
Yeah. Yeah. That's when I played that tune.
Wow. So you didn't
I
play
did.
this tune?
Honestly, I've never played this tune trio before. So I've never played the melody. I've never been responsible for the melody before, as leading a trio. Most of the time, horn players have called this tune, and then I know the changes or whatever. But it's that type of melody. There's not a whole lot of information that you have to memorize. If you remember bo dee 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 do dee dee do da dee, right, and you have a general ability to put things in different keys and to, you know, I can play that sequence probably in every key because it's kind of a major scale, right? Da do da da do da da do da da. I can do that in any key. So I know, even though I didn't play the song in over 10 years and even didn't play the melody, I know that's what. Did you see me when we first started it? Before they got ready, I found the first note because I actually wasn't even sure of the first note. And I said, okay, you know, I know it because I've heard it a bunch of times, But I said, what's that? Okay, I got it, right, and then I know how to do it. So I don't know, you want to say something?
So you said 1998?
This was, yeah, there's a record, one of my, maybe my 6th record as a leader, or 7th. It's called Firm Roots. And I did it in 3/4.
And it's a cool
Yeah,
arrangement.
and Steve is on drums on that record.
Oh, nice.
And Don Braden and
When we were young men.
Kevin Hayes.
Would you hum, or you don't, I mean, you don't have to sing, but I'm just curious how, whenever someone takes a song that's in 1 meter and they arrange it in a different meter, I'm always curious how you hear the phrase in that. So I was just wondering if you could. Oh, nice, yeah, that's nice. Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that was fun.
Again, one of those elements, right? Meter. He said, what does it sound like in 3? What does it sound like in 5? What does it sound like in this? What does it sound like, you can just take, did you reharmonize it at all?
No,
Yeah.
no, but I figured if you like that tune, then why buy my record? Then you better buy Cedar's record. Cedar Walton. He wrote the tune. He plays it great. So why would I record it again the same way? So that's why I thought about it. Do it a different way. Yeah.
And then Cedar heard it and he hated it.
You never heard it.
Oh, you never know. They may have heard it. What I was going to say is I asked him about the harmony because one thing I wanted to say is that, again, with this idea of just having the elements, whatever they are, whichever one you're focused in on, you don't have to change everything. You can make one change from one thing, and that gives it a new life. In his case, it was the meter, and that was in his decision making enough, and it gave it. I mean, wow, I've never heard it like that before. It had a whole different.
What's interesting is every time that tune gets called, like even now, I'm thinking, let's do it in 3. I like that version so much.
Yeah. It has a vibe, but it could be just you're focused in on the harmony. Okay, I'm going to paint this melody over a different background. It doesn't have to be so many elements all at once, but I'm just saying that all of those elements are at your disposal to kind of manipulate and say, I'll change this or that about it. And yeah, that's I think a very fun way of looking at it.
I gotta teach another class.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think is there any other question? Otherwise, I guess we'll call it. I'll hang around a little bit afterwards for those of you who are shy and don't want to talk and maybe want to ask me something. But otherwise, thank you all, and I'll see you throughout the week.
I would say let's look up later for dinner.
Oh yeah.
But maybe tomorrow night I'll be here. I'm not done with
I love Thai.
Yeah, I think it's coming by.
Of course, you're welcome.
Yeah, I would say tonight, and then there's Paul, one of the other bass guys playing on this one. Joris is not here, but once a year, it's at the beginning of the year. This is probably going to be a teacher meeting of all the years. All of this. What are we doing? What are we doing? I'm so exist. It's such a drag.
Okay, we'll talk later.
15 people in the room and you can really have a concert.
That's fantastic.
Roots.
Yeah, R-O-O-T.
I'll look for you tomorrow during the day, just poke my head in, but if I don't, I'll just come by around 7:15 or so, and I'll have you call you.
Okay.
Okay, so for an hour I can do it, but now I can do it.
Masterclass.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, there were some errors with the camera.
There were some errors. There were errors. Oh, meaning that
Like,
they could.
it was like almost like, they're still doing live.
Oh, I see.
But I'm so excited because I just listened to Firm Roses.
Firm Roots. Yeah, there's a version with Bob Berg that's really good. It's see if when you see the song, see if Bob Berg is playing tenor saxophone. He's
Thank you.
No, or maybe I'm wrong.
By the way, do you already have?
Okay, so you want to do yeah. We can,
private
I don't
lessons
know.
this week?
Yeah, because
I don't know who is coming or anything.
I'd like to
Maybe
teach.
maybe
Do you
Midway.
I was going to do some drum practice today.
Yeah, do you know who's coming?
I was talking about it, and for now they said like let's wait and meal. They don't have yet any news. So
we
for
could do
now,
it afterwards, so
nothing.
we try and book a room.
Nothing meaning
I
like
could
2 weeks yet or
Yeah, because he said something they have to assign it.
Cool. I already have a room booked, so you
I don't know what.
okay, but anyway, the lessons, the private lessons.
For now, yeah, like nothing.
Okay.
If there have to be today something, probably.
No,
will
today
happen.
there are
So maybe by tomorrow they will fix it. We will see.